Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the Radio English Conversation Program.
This is Masakyo Sugi, and here with me are
Valerie Koehn.
And Jeff Clark.
Well, today we have Jeff's report on Japan. Well, Jeff, I wonder what the topic is for today.
Yeah, well, let me just preface it by saying I'm sure everybody, especially younger people, are remember that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I haven't forgotten either, Valerie.
Nor have I, Jeff.
But we also shouldn't forget, at least Americans shouldn't forget, that yesterday was President Lincoln's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, early in the year, three of our greatest leaders in the United States were born. Martin Luther King, the great black leader of this century, was born in January, and President Washington was born later on this month. And so we have these three national holidays celebrating three of our greatest figures, our heroes. And about all three of them, there are a lot of legends. Washington cutting down the cherry tree and then telling his father about it because I cannot tell a lie.
Right.
And Lincoln, Honest Abe, cutting down trees and studying by the fireside at night until his eyes became bad. And all of this kind of thing. So I was curious if Japanese have sort of similar legends or about about your heroes, And just in general, what sort of people modern Japanese admire? Well, this time I didn't make a tape. I just asked some of my classes about this topic. And what sort of results do you think I got?
Gosh,
It's hard to tell.
I would think probably popular TV figures, singers, for example, or maybe on the more serious side, some political figures. That would be my guess.
Valerie, you are wrong on both counts.
Really?
Yes, it's quite different. I think in the United States what you would say would be true.
I think so.
But I had very different replies. Probably the only thing that would be, two categories would be common in the United States and Japan. One is the sort of Schweitzer, Mother Teresa, great humanitarian category. And I think everybody around the world admires people like that, even though we can't, exactly copy them. The other one is sports figures. And O Sadaharu is admired. As somebody said, he has a gentle heart toward other people, but he's very stern, severe on himself. And then Kinugasa is admired for the continuity with which he played. He's on Hiroshima.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not much of a sports person.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. He somehow reminds me kind of Pete Rhodes.
Oh, okay.
Cincinnati. And kind of has the same sort of popularity. But in other respects, I had some real surprises. Okay. Well, a lot of my students are women of all ages, and it kind of interested me what sort of role models or what sort of people women in Japan look up to, because the traditional fairy tales and stories usually have male heroes, right? If you think like Momotaro or Isumboshi or Kintaro, that kind of thing. And even like Kaguya Hime, she's basically kind of passive.
Right.
Yeah, she just kind of gets kicked around and ends up going to the moon, So I was wondering what they would say, and I had some interesting replies. One was Sawada Miki, who is a woman who was born to a very wealthy family, yet chose to spend her life taking care of orphans, dedicated her life to other people. And another one was Sakamoto Ryoma, the Meiji Restoration leader. His wife, or girlfriend, I'm not sure which, Oryo, she was admired by the women students for having a very strong character as well as being quite beautiful. And then Tsuda Umeko, who was the founder of Tsuda University.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So these women who are kind of, constructive builders. But one of my students, a very dignified lady, also had a very honest comment that she admires not only these very lofty sort of women, but also prostitutes.
Really? How interesting. I wonder if it's because, did she say why? My image would be because of the courage to do something that society doesn't sanctify.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Maybe all of us have some of that element in us, the kind of gangster or
down and dirty element.
Yeah, but a lot. It was interesting to see how many of the students admired Carmen or Scarlett O'Hara.
Right.
Even though she was very selfish, being kind of having that strong will to live.
Both of them, Carmen and Scarlett O'Hara, have that real passion for life, or some kind of fire.
And then some of my young male students also admire comic book figures, like Lupin 3, Lupin Sansei, or Tetsuan Atom.
Oh, no. They admire the characters.
Yeah, I guess, comic books are kind of like the modern fairy tales. And one of them even has hair, kind of like Lupin Sansei.
One of your students?
Yeah.
That would be like us admiring Dagwood, or who else? What other?
Snoopy.
Snoopy, right. Charlie Brown.
さて、今月は、リンカーン・ワシントンといったようなですね、偉人、のですね、誕生日にあるというようなところから、この我々の尊敬する人物について、というようなテーマで、ちょっと話が進んできたわけですが、このよく名前が上がるこの人たちとしては、シュバイツァーとかマザー・テレサというような人たちがいますよね。これはジェフのクラスで訪ねた、この人たちの年齢にもよるかもしれませんけれども、大体この辺りはうなずけるところで、スポーツでは王監督とか、厳しいからという、それから衣笠選手と、衣笠さんも、この引退しましたが、この辺りもうなずけますね。そして、非常に面白い指摘だと思ったのは、日本のこの歴史的に登場するいろいろなこのお話の中のヒーローというのは大概男だということですね。これ非常に興味深い指摘だと思いますね。次に、このクラスの女性の方々が挙げた、尊敬する人物というのが、例えば女性、でオンパレードでございますが、沢田美希さんですね。エリザベス・サンダースホームというのをやっていらっしゃった、そういう社会福祉に尽くした方。それから面白いのは坂本龍馬の、このお嬢さんと呼ばれるあの女性、津田塾大学の創立者。それから、カルメン・スカーレット派というあたりは、共通して情熱的なこの生きることに対する情熱を感じるような女性というところで大変面白いんですが、最後に漫画のですね、登場人物が、ここにどうして現れるかというのは日本人の私として非常に不思議なんですが、ルパン三世なんていうのはですね、現れたっていうわけですが、どうもなんか日本人としてちょっと恥ずかしいような気もするんですが、アメリカ人としてはどうしてかなと思ってるかもしれませんよね。
You know, though, I can imagine people respecting Charlie Brown, or identifying with Charlie Brown. I've even heard people say, "Oh, I'm just like Charlie Brown," or "I'm just like Snoopy," or something. We do have that identification. I don't know if we admire them.
Or pattern after them. Hopefully not.
Right.
Well, some people say Charlie Brown cartoons are pretty philosophical.
That they are, right.
Well, kind of to balance out the Lupin Sansei sort of thing, I should mention that some of my students admired people like Botticelli. Or Chopin. So there was definitely that sort of cultural strain in there too.
Yes.
Valerie, you mentioned something the other day, reading an article that said about who Americans admire, right?
Right. Well, this is a tremendous contrast to what you've just described. It was in the New York Times, and I guess it was the Gallup poll, and Americans were polled or asked about who they respect most. Figures that they respect, not just American figures, but anyone. And the majority of the top 10 were politicians. Number 1 was, of course, President Reagan.
Yeah.
The second was Pope John Paul, who is the head of the Catholic Church. I think he's the one exception here that was not in government in some way.
Well, he is head of the Vatican City.
True, right, which is extremely governmental.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this one was a surprise for me, Gary Hart,
Oh my gosh.
who's in the limelight a lot these days, senator, running for president. Jesse Jackson, minister, who's also running for president. George Bush,
Vice President.
Vice President.
Yeah. Also running for president.
Right, all these presidential candidates.
Yeah.
I guess it takes a lot of courage to be a presidential candidate. Maybe there's something there.
Or a lot of conceit.
Right. And then the list went on with the last, not in order necessarily, but North.
Oh, the man who was kind of the center of the Iran-Gate scandal.
Right.
Infamous, maybe the word. And Iacocca, the Chrysler president. And last but not least here, Gorbachev.
Really?
Right. Was respected, admired by Americans, who is, of course, head of the Communist Party, or Secretary General of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union, which is not one of America's favorite. So it's very interesting when we compare it to the results that you have for your survey.
Yeah, there was only one public figure at all that was mentioned. That was Tokugawa Ieyasu. And he was admired because he likes peace. And he was able to create a peaceful nation. But
nobody recent.
No, nobody recent at all. And I was rather surprised about that. Of course, maybe they wanted to avoid political arguments.
Well, I'm sure it depends on, as Sensei said too, it depends on the age and the sex, I think, of the person you're asking also. I mean, I wonder what results we'd get if we asked teenagers in the United States. I don't think that this list that I just read from the New York Times was representative of teenagers.
Oh, certainly not. In fact, I've heard that teenagers almost only admire rock stars or movie stars. But surprisingly, not a single person like that was mentioned by any of my students, even the very young students.
It's very interesting.
And I mean, well, there was Lupin Sansei, but no,
yeah, relatively, I think you have good students.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Well, I'm wondering now, who are your favorites? Who do you admire?
Oh. It's really hard for me to name one person because I tend to think in terms of qualities, qualities in people that I admire. And I think the top of the list for me is people with courage and conviction to trust themselves and their own truths, and people with compassion.
Well, got quite a few people I admire, actually, and too many to count, actually. I need about 20 minutes to name all of them. So it's really hard to just name one or two.
Yeah.
Well,
what about you, Jeff?
I like reading autobiographies of people. And I remember reading Tolstoy's and Gandhi's and Thoreau's autobiography and really being inspired and influenced by these people. So I still admire them even now.
さて、このアメリカ人の尊敬する人物という話になりましたんですが、あるアンケートによりますと、非常に面白い結果が出ていますが、1番はレーガン、大統領ですね。2番にヨハネ・パウロ2世。それから3位に、これがバレリーが意外だと言っていた、このゲイリー・ハート議員ですね。一度この大統領選に立候補してそれをやめてまた再出馬というですね、話題の人物。それから3位がジェシー・ジャクソン、牧師、この方も大統領選に立候補していますし、それから次にブッシュ副大統領。これもまあうなずけるところかもしれませんが、ノース中佐、イラン事件で、非常に注目を浴びた方ですね。Well, this is Masaki Osungi saying goodbye.
And this is Valerie Koehn.
And Jeff Clark.
Saying bye-bye.
So long. Welcome to the Radio English Conversation Program.
This is Masaki Osugi, and here with me are
Valerie Koehn.
And Jeff Clark.
Well, we have Jeff's report on Japan, and today is January 16th, so I know what your report is going to be about, Jeff.
That's right. Yesterday, you must have seen them also, Sensei. The 19 and 20-year-olds all dressed up in their first suit or their first furisode, looking, I don't know, I think more cute, really, than adult. But trying to look adult, that was it. So today we're going to talk about coming of age, yesterday being coming of age day, and what it means to become an adult. And I interviewed a young woman named Ito Kasumi, who yesterday participated in some of the ceremonies with her family.
I see.
And I interviewed her actually before the 15th. So let's listen to her conversation. I'm sitting here talking with Miss Ito Kasumi, who is one of my favorite students. Hi, Kasumi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Okay, good. I guess that you're going to be celebrating Coming of Age Day.
Yes, on the 15th.
Yes, that's right. So does that mean, are you, I know I'm not supposed to ask a young woman's age, but are you 19 or 20?
I'm 19.
And when will you turn 20?
14th in February.
Oh, on Valentine's Day?
Yes.
Wow, how romantic. Now, are you going to be wearing furisode?
Yes, I probably borrow my furisode from my cousin.
Oh, really? And where will you go on the 15th?
I want to go to Meiji Shrine.
Oh, Meiji Shrine. Will you go with your family or who?
My family.
Now, you live in Minato-ku?
Yes.
Yeah. Does Minato-ku have some special ceremony or something like that?
Probably.
Will you go to that also?
Yes.
You don't seem very interested.
No.
You're not. Why not?
It is held by government, so it's so serious.
Oh, I see.
I think.
Not so exciting then, huh? Okay. Well, I wonder, you will become officially an adult on this day. What does it mean to you to become an adult?
I can drink and smoke in public.
Oh, in public?
And I am given the right to vote by government.
Do you plan to vote?
Yes, I am given very important responsibility in society.
Yeah, I found her last response kind of interesting. And I don't know, maybe she's a Shinjinrui, I'm not sure, but she seems to be looking forward to having daily responsible tasks in society. Actually, Kasumi-chan is already working. She works part-time as well as going to school. She has since she was 18. And in fact, her family, although she's an only child, you know, the image is that only children are always protected by their parents. But her parents encouraged her to go out and do it for herself. So if she's a Shinjinrui, it's, I think, a good sign, showing that, you know, she wants to have responsibility. But I find my observation about Japanese society, and I think a lot of foreigners notice this, especially with the women, there's kind of a nostalgia for almost childhood, you know, for like really cute notebook paper and, accessories and things like that, Mickey Mouse and that kind of thing, which in itself is kind of cute. But I think it shows a reluctance to enter into the adult world, an attachment to a previous, their teenage state, or maybe junior high school state when that kind of thing was really popular. And sometimes that draws criticism from foreigners who are living in Japan. But I think maybe it reflects something about the situation of young people at that particular age, in their late teens or their early 20s, being forced into making very, very important decisions about their life, whether they're really ready internally or not to make them. One of them being, of course, the university that they go to. It's proverbially difficult to transfer from one university to another in Japan. They have to choose their major when they go into a university, which is not always true in the United States. It wasn't true at the university I went to. Then when they graduate, or actually before they graduate, they have to choose a company. And in the case of a man, and sometimes with women now too, for life, presumably. And then, according to age, there's a lot of pressure to get married by a certain age in Japanese society. So I think that there's kind of the feeling that they have a really good time in college, at least some of them do. And then once they get out, they're suddenly forced into the mill of society, whether they want to be or not. And there is this sort of natural reluctance and kind of dislike of the adult world, or fear of it, I think, among a lot of young people. Not evidently, Kasumi didn't really come across in that way, but I think that that's a common thing in Japan.
I think some people might even suggest that Japanese are not allowed to ever be children with all of the studying that they're required to do, even as small children in grade school and junior high school and high school as well. And that could be another symptom, I guess, that we see with, as you said, the cute little things, this need to find a youth, a childhood somewhere, even in the so-called adult world.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Ruth Benedict, I read this book years and years ago, The Chrysanthemum and the Sword, which is, a kind of pioneer work. She said in that, and I think other anthropologists confirm this, that traditionally it's been for a boy around 10 or 11 or 12, suddenly the boom comes down. And, until then they're pretty much let to do what they want. But then they're told by their parents, this is what you've got to do. You're getting to be a big boy now. You've got to study hard. You've got to do all of these things. And as you say, Valerie, it seems that the age is getting younger and younger now. It's more like, 6 or 7 in some cases. Than,
become an adult at 7, right?
Yeah. さて、日本人は、一般的に例えば若い人はですね、アメリカ人と比べるとやや幼稚ではないかというようなそういう意見も、一般にあるようだと、いうことですね。で、その点では、しかしどうでしょうか、いろいろなプレッシャーがあるんじゃないかと、例えば、この重要な決定を人生でしなければならない年齢というのが、かなり早いうちに来るというそういう意見があるようですね。例えば大学に入る、またはこの専門を、決める、または就職先を決めるというようなことでも、例えば、就職の場合には、22歳または18歳、高校出るときに決めるというようなことでプレッシャーがあって、でそのプレッシャーのはけ口としてやはり、ですね、責任を負って大人になる、社会に出ていくということに対するこのリラクタンスと言っていましたね。どうももう一つ渋々という感じで、進んで出ていこうという気にならないというようなことがあるかもしれないと。
Well, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about American young people, about their attitudes toward becoming adults or being regarded as grown-ups. Well, as you know, officially, at least in California, we become adults when we turn 21. And how about in Wisconsin,
right.
Valerie?
I just remembered I became an adult in Wisconsin
What was it right?
And the age there was 18. I think it's gone up. That's funny, it changes, but I think at the time it was 18. I think it's 19 now.
That's funny, Valerie. Then since you and I became adults at the very same time, the same year, because I'm 3 years older than you.
That's right.
Okay.
So I understand it all depends on the state.
Right, it depends on the law of the state, and which of course implies whether you can vote or drink and buy alcohol, which is interesting factor which determines adulthood is voting and drinking.
Yeah, publicly, as
she
aptly said. And actually, in California, they're very strict about the drinking publicly. I wasn't allowed to go into a bar or drink liquor or anything like that until I was 21. And that's one reason why my dad, when I turned 21, he took my big brother and I to Las Vegas. And I could finally gamble legally, drink, and do all of those sinful things legally. And it wasn't nearly as fun as I had expected. I think if it was illegal, I would have maybe had a little bit more fun.
I see.
But that was how... we also usually have a really big party on 21. But that is another difference, of course, between Japan and the United States, that we have it for individuals. And Japan, it is kind of a collective thing where everybody who is in that particular year of school, I guess, Cosima was saying that all of the sophomores in her school are basically going through this ceremony or this stage or whatever.
So a new batch of adults.
Right, exactly, all at the same time. I think that's that has a tradition because I think everybody became 1 year older on New Year's Day, traditionally. Right. And then, of course, a lot of people didn't know their birthdays either in pre-modern Japan. Yeah, but be that as it may, I wasn't very happy at that time in my life. I have to admit, I wasn't very happy, wasn't looking forward that much to becoming an adult. Still, I'm not. I was looking forward to going to Japan. I came into Japan the second time when I was 21. But the first year I was here, I was very lonely and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I'm not at all nostalgic about my youth or my early days. How about you, Valerie?
Oh, I am. I remember having a great time in the years that I was, 18 to X, 18 to 23, 24, something like that. Actually, my first year as an adult was in Japan also. It was a sophomore in college. And right? So there were a lot of lonely times, as you said, here in a foreign country, but it was really symbolic, I think, to becoming an adult, was to leave the nest, to leave home and actually go to a foreign country, and I had to forge my way. I was taken care of by a wonderful family here, so I wasn't totally adult in the sense of taking all social responsibility. But it was freeing for me,
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's kind of the American dream. If I had to say it in a word, it's this idea of leaving your family. I mean, in my family, if all five of us had left the family by the time we were 18, and going out and creating your own world, your own family, or your own business, or something like that. And when you finally do that, you're really an adult.
Well, I left my family at the age of 18, too.
So you were a young adult, too.
Right. さて、アメリカでは州によって成人年齢というのは違うということがわかりますね。21歳だと言っていたジェフと、それから18歳だと言っていたバレリーのウィスコンシン州ですよね。で、ジェフの方はどうもですね、この時期19歳から21、22くらいはあんまりいい時期じゃなかったと言っていますね。どうも暗い青春時代ということですね。それに反してバレリーの方はとても明るくて、ですね、ノスタルジーを感じる非常にいい青春時代だったようですね。2人は今ではどうでしょう。まだ青春でしょうか。
I'm wondering, Sensei, how did you, or what were you doing when you became 20 or became an adult?
Adult? Well, I was an adult when I was born because I was born on the 15th of January.
Oh, that's right.
So I was pretty mature.
More and more adult every year.
Right. Okay, well, this is Masaaki Osugi saying goodbye.
And this is Valerie Koehn.
And Jeff Clark.
Saying bye-bye.
So long.